Ella, thank you so much for joining us on the call here tonight. Really, really appreciate it. If you could do this, tell us, well, actually, before we do that, I just want to stress something here. Um, we're going to hear a testimonial that is involving a COVID vaccine injury. And we're living in a very exciting time right now because things that have been brushed under the carpet for way too long are beginning to come to light. My daughter had an injury after a vaccine. Thankfully, that wasn't serious. This technology was remarkable for her recovery. But it exists. It's real. If you don't believe it's real, you're going to learn it's real here with Ella's testimonial. I do want to stress as well that we do not make any medical claims for ASEA Redox. It's not a treatment or cure for any disease or medical condition. So with that, Ella, let me hand it over to you. Tell us a little bit about your background and your experience before and after ASEA Redox.
All right. Thank you so much, Alan. This is just super exciting, and I pray that me sharing this will be helpful to others. So just a little background. I'm a mom of three girls. My husband is a principal. We're both in education. I'm a full-time middle school teacher. I have taught chemistry and physical science. I've taught math, a little bit of biology, and I'm currently the STEAM teacher at my school. Prior to August of 2021, I led a very active lifestyle, but I really thought very little of my health. I just didn't think about it. When I would go to the doctor for a yearly checkup, it took me no time to fill out the medical forms because there just wasn't any issues. But in August of 2021, in my late 30s, I received the first and only COVID vaccine. And within just a few hours, I knew that that was a bad decision for me. I had a seizure 36 hours after receiving the vaccine, and I've never had a seizure in my life. I was standing beside my young daughter at the time, and when I regained consciousness, I couldn't speak for a couple of minutes. It was like my brain had just been wiped clean. A follow-up at the ER that night showed immediate heart issues were taking place. And when I went to my doctor the next day and they drew blood, the nurse audibly gasped because the blood coming out of my arm was dark, dark brown. Um, so weeks that followed had lots of neurologist visits, lots of cardiologist visits. I would meet with my team of teachers in the hall and we would discuss the plans for that day. And then as soon as I went back in my classroom, I couldn't remember what we had discussed. I had difficulty entering phone numbers. I had trouble copying and pasting on my computer, things that I had done for years and not even thought twice about. Fortunately, the neurological issues did improve, but the heart issues continued to worsen. I would just be sitting in a chair, relaxing, and my heart would be beating over 150 beats per minute. My smartwatch would just be going crazy, filling those exercise rings. Every joint in my body screamed, and I had no energy at all. I would wake up in the morning, and before I even opened my eyes, I remember I would just wiggle my fingers and think, okay, it's still there. This is going to be another day with this. And the discomfort would begin and it would continue and just get worse and worse. I would lay in bed and think, what do I have to get done today? Because the real goal at that point in my life was just to get back in bed. I had no energy, and it didn't matter how much I slept. It was like my batteries just could not charge. On top of this, I had no immune system. I was sick all the time. Being a public school teacher, you're around a lot of different options of what you might catch. So the strep, flu, stomach virus, even COVID, had all of that at some point and some multiple times. So the months after the shot were just miserable and they continued to get worse. I would push through my school days, but by about 12 o'clock, my hands and feet would be radiating with so much pain. But you can't just tap out when you're teaching sixth graders. You got to keep pushing through. And I would have to put my feet up on my desk at the end of the school day and just sit there for a bit before I could physically even walk out to my car. And then after picking up my girls who were ages 3, 8, and 11 at the time, when we would get home from school around 4 o'clock, I would get back in bed and My big girls would have to cook supper. If any of them needed me, they would have to come sit by me in bed. It was just, it was heartbreaking. And things that I would take for granted, like grocery shopping, I would have to save that for Saturdays and debate if I even wanted to buy a watermelon because of the discomfort I would feel every time I had to lift it in and out of the cart or my buggy or bring it home. Um, One big event that stands out is Easter. Easter is a big deal for Southern moms. We have big church services and egg hunts and big family dinners. And that following Easter, about 7 or 8 months after the shot, I was trying to get my three girls ready. They had matching dresses and they wanted pancakes. And so, what mom doesn't want to cook pancakes for their kids? But I remember being in my kitchen and being angry because I knew that doing this was taking effort and energy that I just didn't have. And I couldn't eat those pancakes anyway because I'd cut out all sugar from my diet trying to reduce the inflammation in my body. My girls wanted me to braid their hair and put it up in bows and stuff, and my fingers just physically could not do that. And so we took a few family pictures of just the girls and their dad out in the front yard. And then he took them to church, and I went back to bed, and that's where I stayed for the rest of the day. And when I look back at those pictures, it just makes me feel so sad because I look at my girls' faces and they're trying so hard to be normal and happy. But deep down, they knew how sick, knew that their mom was sick, and I can tell that they, were scared. Um, Continuing on, about 10 months after the shot, I had a cardiac event at school. I know what it feels like for your heart to stop and you're still conscious. I know what it feels like to have your heart not beating in your chest. And you realize that's happening. Days after this event, I spent in the hospital. They ran lots of tests, and doctors told me what I had heard for the better part of that year, which is we don't know. This is unprecedented territory. I was instructed to carry nitroglycerin with me at all times. And I was also told that I needed to immediately start medicine for cholesterol because my cholesterol levels were through the roof. And I decided that I would carry the nitroglycerin, but I declined the other medicines that were offered. Um, so summer finally came. I'm about 10 months into this, and as a teacher, that's when you get all the stuff done that you've neglected. So I was determined that summer to get better for my family and for my girls. And I found a new doctor and we had some new blood work done. And there were lots of concerning things that showed in that. But the most concerning was a marker for an autoimmune challenge. And during that summer, with different doctors that I met with, I had two medical professionals tell me if I couldn't get my inflammation levels down in my body, that I was going to develop an issue of uncontrolled cell growth. And that is terrifying to hear. But no one could tell me how to do that, how to accomplish getting that inflammation down. So I did everything I knew to do. I tried everything to get better for my family and for my girls. I did diet changes. At some point was at 30 supplements a day. I had 5 prescriptions that I took that were recommended by my doctors. But I was only getting worse. And this was just so expensive for my family financially, but also it was expensive time-wise on what I was losing and the moments that I was missing. I was a bystander. In my life, I wasn't living. I was just surviving from day to day. I even went to sleep at my daughter's sporting event, just sitting on the sidelines. I went to sleep, and I just put a smile on and keep going, and praying that this would get better. I had a visit with a major health clinic. I was very excited about this. I thought that this was going to be the answer, and they diagnosed me with a chronic condition of widespread discomfort and fatigue. And I was told by them to accept this new normal, that I needed to stop thinking of how my life used to be and only focus on what I could do that day. I was also told to go ahead and start considering disability. And that is not what I was looking for as a professional in the middle of my career. I didn't want to be on disability. I wanted to be able to live my life as I had before. Um, that was a rough point, and I was starting to get to a really low spot. But fortunately, my mom kept pushing and looking, and through a divinely appointed encounter, she discovered through Facebook, she discovered ASEA, and she said, "We're going to try this for 3 months. We're going to see what happens. I'm buying it, and you're going to drink it." And so I agreed to drinking the pool water. I really thought she was being scammed, though, gotta tell you. But I had nothing to lose. And so within 2 weeks of drinking the solution, I noticed some changes. They weren't necessarily positive, but I noticed changes. And so that was exciting. I noticed that the joints in my hands and feet actually hurt worse. My skin was very itchy and had a gritty feeling to it. I had a dull headache that not much could help. And my sponsor told me to increase my water intake. And in doing so, my hands and my fingertips started to smell like burnt matches. And with my chemistry background, I recognized that as being sulfur and phosphorus, and that was very alarming. But the cool part was something was happening, and I hadn't had that before with any other thing that I had tried. So I continued to drink the molecules, and into the second month, I noticed that my energy levels were starting to slowly increase. My joint discomfort was starting to decrease, and we were getting pretty close to Christmas, and I hadn't decorated yet. And I asked my husband if he would get the boxes down, and I thought I'm just going to decorate, just do one box, one box. And before I knew it, I had done all the boxes, and our house was decorated. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to pay for this tomorrow because I've overdone it. And the next day, I woke up and I felt great. And I did more Christmas stuff because as a mom with kids, you got a lot to do before Christmas. And then after about 5 months of being on Redox, it's springtime, and all my friends and colleagues are complaining of all the pollen that we have here and their issues with the pollen. And I had had issues with pollen in the past as well, so I was fully expecting to start taking those medicines, and I didn't need to. I don't have issues with pollen or any type of seasonal issue anymore, which is really cool. I'm also very rarely sick. Around hundreds of people every day at school, and there's always something going around. But I don't seem to catch it, and if I do, it only lasts for a day or two. So, in conclusion, I've been on Redox for 2 years now. And under doctor's supervision, I've been able to come off all of my prescription meds, all the heart meds and everything else that I was on. I now just take a few selective supplements, and I'm very confident that my body is able to use those supplements effectively. My total cholesterol is down 49 points. I never opted for that medication. And the molecules have changed my life. They have changed my family's life. And through them, I've been able to help a lot of other people. And God has answered my prayers, and He's given me an even greater purpose. So when I think of redox, I think of the word restoration. Restoration of my health, restoration of my faith, restoration of my finances, restoration of my time with my family, and just restoration of being able to live my life and not just sitting or literally sleeping on the sidelines. I no longer play a pitiful defense with my health, but I play a powerful offense.
Yeah.
And I can't end this without reflecting on my mom because I will forever be grateful for her willingness to do anything to help me. She took the chance and she bought the redox molecules for me. She's the one that gave out her credit card and personal information to a stranger. She took the risk, and I was not in a place emotionally or financially to do that anymore. I had already put so much effort and resources that my family had into trying to recover, and I'd failed. And I was at the point of really giving up. And so I say that my mom has given me life 2 times. The first was on my birthday, and the second was when she introduced me to redox molecules.
Wow.
Thank you.
What a great mom.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Wow. Incredible, incredible, incredible story. Incredible transformation to see you now as, oh, don't get me started. I'm the crybaby of a CL. Don't get me
I
started.
held off till the end.
Don't get me started. Um, just incredible to see you now. Beautiful, vibrant in the peak of your life. to be told just a couple of years ago, hey, why don't you think about disability and just hang it up? This is just the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
And that's no answer. That's no answer. But of course, um, you stumbled on these molecules thanks to your mom. So I've really nothing to add. I guess I do want to point out, obviously, sometimes things got to get a little worse before they get better. If your body's got a lot of toxic crud in there, it has to come out. Okay. Good stuff in, bad stuff out. That's what, and these molecules and through the glutathione and NRF2 going to help flush a lot of these toxins out, even if they smell a little bit like burnt matches. So very, very fascinating testimonial. Ella, I have nothing to add. I just want to thank you for just sharing this very, very important message to people. It is something the world needs to hear. As I said, this is beginning to be brought to the attention that all is not perhaps as it seems. And there's a lot of people have suffered from this. As I said, my daughter, through a mandatory vaccination in order for us to become American citizens, we took great, great care in trying to minimize the toxic load. And still, my daughter had a pretty challenging time. That's a story for another time. So I know it's real. And I hope, if nothing else, this call wakes other people up to know that it truly is real. It's real out there. We will not go into specifics, but perhaps just as a closing note, you are able to know which batch you got, and it's interesting. Some batches seem to be a little bit to cause a higher percentage of challenges than other batches that cause no challenges, and we're still trying to get answers as to why that is. But your batch was particularly challenging. Let's just leave it there. So I just want to say thank you again. Of course, I need to reiterate that ASEA Redox is not a treatment or cure for any disease or medical condition. We are simply giving our body a resource, not a nutritional resource, a signaling resource that is foundational to every aspect of our health, every system, every organ, every function. If your cells can't signal, little else matters. And what our body does with that resource is up to our body. What my body does with it is different to what Ella's body is going to do with it. And so one of the beautiful things we say is, look, our technology has zero toxicity. It can do you no harm, and it might just do you some good. So thank you again, Ella, for sharing your story. Beautiful story, beautiful transformation. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.